Hello and welcome to the Fall Start Fantasy Podcast, episode 21. With your favorite co-hosts, Josh and Cameron, are here to talk to you about the NFL playoffs and our NFC North Roundup, as well as, and we're going to jump right into this, the NFL awards. But before we jump into that, how's everyone's favorite co-host doing, Josh?
I'm doing pretty well. Just got off work, off my feet finally, and time to record a good podcast.
All right, well, I'm ready to jump right into it then. We are currently recording this podcast in the middle, I couldn't get that word out, the middle of the NFL awards. We'll go ahead and jump into it. And the first one that I noticed at least showed up on my phone was Sauce Gardner winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'll go ahead and throw this to you because I know you're a Seahawks fan and you were probably pretty hoping that Tariq Woolen would win.
Yeah, I was hoping Tariq Woolen would win it. I mean, he just has like a little bit better what round did he go in the draft? It was like in the middle, like a fourth round pick. Either way, I know he wasn't nearly high as a pick as Gardner Johnson. So to me, the fact that he competed and produced just nearly as much as Sauce, I would have given it to him just slightly, but Sauce Gardner definitely worthy of this award. He had a phenomenal season.
Yeah, he really did. A lot of respect to Sauce Gardner. It was a lot of worry, like, oh, he's from Cincinnati. Is he really going to be that guy? Yeah, he's that guy. And honestly, I think that there's a serious argument that he should have been a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year, but for some reason he wasn't. I think it's a disrespect thing to the cornerback position, but whatever. I'm not going to worry too much about it. Moving on to the Offensive Rookie of the Year, and we also have a Jets player in Garrett Wilson. Congratulations there to him. I'll go ahead and let you talk about Garrett Wilson as well.
I don't really have much to add on this one. None of the rookie running backs. I mean, Breece Hall probably would have won it if he had stayed healthy. You can make an argument for Ken Walker being it, but Wilson definitely deserved it. He earned his way up into being, like, at least in fantasy terms, tier quarterback, as long as Zach Wilson was not his quarterback at the time. But even then, he still produced pretty well. And all I gotta say is the future looks very bright for the Jets, which is really weird to say. As long as they can get a good quarterback, they're fine.
See, I feel like we say that every year about the Jets, though. It's just like, man, if they just had a quarterback, and then it's just like they don't. eh, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. How would you feel about them trading up? Let's say it was hypothetically possible to the number one overall pick and getting a guy there.
What it's worth, it probably cost him way too much. I'd say with this draft, don't get me wrong, these QBs are really good, but I'd say none of them are worth moving up that far. We see if you can find a vet, maybe a Derek Carr or someone we might be talking about a little later, and see if that works out a little bit better. I don't know why they cannot scout QBs to save their lives. Look at their starter for part of this season, Zach Wilson.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson is just a super awesome talent. Definitely worthy of the Offensive Rookie of the Year. I don't think it was as set in stone as some people think it was. Chris Olave had a fantastic year, but I don't think any of the running backs, or especially not any of the tight ends, really had a chance. And anyone who said that Brock Purdy should have won it is someone who doesn't know football. That was a stupid take.
Though Breece Hall had stayed healthy, he would have won it, but unfortunately, he got injured in like week.
Yeah, Breece Hall was. Oh man, that guy is gonna just be amazing. I hope he can stay healthy in the future because he's just a absolute legend of a player already. I was looking at some stats earlier today, and it's something like the running backs behind Breece Hall were averaging like 3.5 yards per carry each, like all of them, whereas Breece Hall was averaging 5.5 or something like that, like just going absolutely insane. Yeah. Guy was
I
having a
went to
hell of
try
a run.
to trade for him last night. I'm just like, as soon as I saw Brees Hall's name, I'm like, fuck no.
Yeah,
Not getting him.
I was hoping. I was like, I actually have quite a few options right here. I bet I could get something. And nope, that was clearly not enough. But uh,
Yeah, that was an immediate no.
all right. Next one here is Defensive Player of the Year went to Nick Bosa. We're both Chiefs fans, so I can say we feel like Chris Jones was a little robbed. Nick Bosa led the league in sacks. Congratulations there. Finally had a year where he was mostly healthy, so good job at least with that. And he did have a fantastic year. Like, don't think anything I'm saying is like, oh, anti Nick Bosa. That guy was phenomenal. Was definitely the best pass rusher on that team. However, when you have five guys on the defensive line who can all get to the quarterback in 2.5 seconds, it is a little, it's just not as much of a MVP on the defense as a guy like Chris Jones was, where everyone else on the defense of the Chiefs was just not as good as the defense of the 49ers, but Chris Jones was putting up phenomenal numbers. But you can't take playoff stats into consideration, so congratulations, Nick Bosa. He was my pick at the start of the year. I thought he would win it, and so feeling good that he did.
I have nothing else to add on this one. He deserves it. Good job. There's a lot of other candidates that you could have thrown in there, but sack leader, much always goes to them nowadays.
Yeah, next award we have here is the Offensive Player in the Year. Went to Justin Jefferson. I've got nothing to add. The guy was Offensive Player of the Year. Was phenomenal. Yeah. We've been saying that for a few years now.
Mm-hmm.
Comeback Player of the Year was Geno Smith, and I love Geno Smith's story, but I don't understand giving him Comeback Player of the Year because what did he come back from? Like, he played games last year and wasn't injured. Like, he came back from being bad? Is that the point of the award? I don't.
If I were to guess, it's because of the fact that last year he was only in for like what 2-3 games.
Something like that when Russ was injured.
Obvious backup, and now he's a starter, and he has such a good season. Don't get me wrong, I think it should have gone to someone else who missed majority of the season, like the previous year, and came back, or something along those lines.
Someone like Nick Bosa, who just won Defensive Player in the Year and missed most of last year, perhaps.
Yeah, but I like Geno Smith, so I'm okay with him winning this award. It's a bit of a stretch than comeback player of the year, but I'm glad he won something at least.
Yeah, I also would have been happy with Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey. Like, there was a lot of candidates I liked more than Geno Smith, but I do love Geno Smith's story, and that award doesn't mean that much to me, so I don't really care. I'm not gonna go die on this hill for it.
Better.
Yep. Next award we have here is the MVP, and it just got announced. Patrick Mahomes just got the notification on my phone. No surprise there. We were saying he was MVP for a few weeks in a row now. Yep, hoping he can take the Chiefs to the Super Bowl or win the Chiefs to the Super Bowl.
Hope so. Otherwise, I am going to be very sad driving home.
Driving home from where?
Emporia.
Oh, you're gonna go to Emporia for the game?
I'll be in the area this weekend, so why not?
I like it. I like it. Visiting your girlfriend over the weekend?
Mm-hmm.
I got you.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
a big fan of the podcast, right? She listens every week.
She knows enough about football to understand how the sport is played. I'll put it that way.
You know what? Baby steps. Baby steps. Maybe next year we have a few episodes that are about teaching beginners. Who knows?
It's a daily downside. She's a Packers fan, so
Well, how much of a Packers fan could she be if she doesn't even know the game?
to the point where she said if I took her to a Chiefs Packers game, she'd sit in.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Enjoys the Packers. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, apparently. Coach of the Year, Brian Dable, and I am so happy to see that Brian Dable won this award because if you asked me to name 3 players on the Giants defense, I could not do it. That is just not a very good, talented defense and not a very talented offense, and he turned it into a playoff team, and that's absolutely fantastic, especially in the NFC East.
I enjoyed watching them because they are just scrappy. They somehow, I don't know how, they just hang in there. They hang in there just long enough for you to get that one mistake, and then somehow they beat you. Just like, the hell did I lose this to this team? Their starting wide receiver is Isaiah Hodgins, who I've never heard of until 2 weeks ago.
Seriously, like, I was just like some sixth round pick on the Bills who wasn't making the roster, and then was like, "Hey, I'm your best player now." And they're like, "Okay."
Made Kenny Galladay look somewhat okay because they had no choice.
Yeah, he actually had quite a few plays that you were like, "What? Kenny Galladay? Really? Okay." I know he had the one touchdown that was pretty awesome and a catch on the sidelines, and I can't remember anything else. But I mean,
That's about
that's more than Joe Judge ever got out of him. So,
That's true.
assistant coach of the year was D'Amico Ryans, the San Francisco 49ers defensive coordinator, and now the Texans head coach. Right?
Texans.
Yeah.
But that just makes sense. That was a phenomenal defense, so can't think of anyone else who would go to really off the top of my head.
Yeah. I believe that the head coach's job or the coach's jobs is not just to construct a good offense and defense. It's to develop the players. You can blame your GM for drafting bad players all you want, but it is still on the coaching staff to turn them into good players. And it's why head coaches like Titans head coach. Why can I not remember his name?
Mike Vrabel.
Mike Vrabel, yeah. Guys like Mike Vrabel, who it's like his GM was horrible. Got himself fired when they were a consistently winning team. Horrible. And but he's just such a good head coach and good at developing talent that he was able to get those players to be the best that they could become. And I think that's a big job there. And I think D'Amico Ryans was fantastic on that. And Brian Dable as well as a head coach on the Giants. Got the most out of his players, even if they're not the most talented. Though 49ers guys are pretty talented.
Defenses. Really, they're just a few stars in their secondary short of being up here at every level.
Yeah, when we get to that NFC West division in our divisional roundup, it's going to be interesting talking about that 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
But that does it for the NFL awards. Congratulations to all those winners. I'm sure they're all big fans of the podcast, so they'll definitely be listening to hear that I give them a lot of credit, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, moving on to our next segment, Dynasty Startup. We are now in the 23rd. Yeah, 23rd round. We're currently on the last pick of the 23rd round. It is my pick. See, Ryan Tannehill's still available, which is pretty interesting. Maybe I'll go with another running back. I definitely need those. Or maybe I'll go grab the 4th round picks. Hard to say. But I'll definitely be thinking about that. Yeah, there's a lot that I kind of need on my team. But I did want to ask you, we have had definitely an interesting last few rounds. We're getting to the point where it's just like, these guys are all worth a late 3rd or 4th round pick. Just shoot your shot on whoever you think is good down here. Don't worry about ADP. So I want to ask you, who was your favorite player that you've taken in the last few rounds?
Oh, this is someone that I was actually kind of surprised he fell down this far. And he is a lot younger than I realized until I clicked on him, and it's like, wait a minute, this guy's only 26? It is none other maybe the 3rd receiver there for the Commies.
Yeah.
Yeah, Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel, nominal athlete. He is unfortunately used mostly as like a gadget play type of player. However, if you put him in the slot, he usually does okay. He fell to me in the 20th round. I'm looking at everyone. I'm like, Ryan Tannehill's still there, I guess. Could pick a kicker and get a rookie pick, but He ain't rookies yet. I want to win this thing. Hmm. Curtis Samuel. Let's go, Curtis Samuel. So,
Yeah,
I'll have
I'm a big
that.
fan of Curtis Samuel. When he was on the Panthers, I was a big fan of him. So I think it was a good pick.
Mhm.
So.
Definitely happy with that.
Yeah, my favorite pick over the last few rounds in the 23rd round. This round, I was able to get Rashid Shaheed, a rookie wide receiver on the New Orleans Saints, who had a pretty low start. Every rookie wide receiver does, but let me read you his snap count over the last 4 games of the season: 71%, 43%, 68%, and 83% in that game against the Panthers that they were definitely trying to win. And I think that Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas are guys who are both going to be gone at the end of this year, and I think that leaves a guy like Rashid Shaheed on a team with not a lot of draft capital, super old ass defense and offense, and a lot of holes to fill. And they're going to be saying, "Hey, Shaheed, you did fine at the end of the year. How about you be our number 2 guy going into the season?" So I'm thinking that was a
Yeah, I like that pickup. I almost picked him with my last pick. Instead, I went Darius Slayton. I wanted someone that has a little bit known what he can do, and he's not bad, mostly because there's no other weapons, but it's still not bad in considering injury history with the Giants. I'm like, I'll bank on that happening again, but I just about went with him instead.
Yeah, I think it talks a lot about our rosters. My wide receivers that I have starting are Chase, Smith, Burks, Brown, and then I've got Ayuk and Wandale Robinson and a couple other guys there that it's like I've got 4 wide receivers that I'm happy to start every single week. Whereas you've got some guys who are a little older, and DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Lockett, and it's like I love those players, but maybe I need something a little more established in case these guys don't play the full 16 or 17.
Yeah,
So.
my thought process is like I want someone I can put in just in case, but I got a few that work throws. But if they pay off, then probably got one of the best receiving cores in there is.
And definitely good to have. Well, that rounds up our Dynasty Startup update. We're going to go ahead and move on to our Divisional Roundup. We're doing the NFC North this week, and I'm going to kick it off with the Minnesota Vikings. Now, one of my good friends, his name's Alex, and one of my coworkers named Mark, they're both big-time Minnesota Vikings fans. And when you ask them about the Minnesota Vikings, it is not a happy subject for them. That is a team that has just been completely riddled with sadness over the last, I don't know, 3 decades, I want to say. It seems that just can't seem to win it all, and it's an old franchise with a lot of great players that have been on it. And when I look at this team now, you kind of feel that same way. We're talking about an old Adam Thielen, an old Harrison Smith, 33-year-old Adam Thielen, 34-year-old Harrison Smith. These guys who have been part of the team for a long time now. 35-year-old Kirk Cousins, 28-year-old Dalvin Cook. It's rough. There's a lot of guys on there that have been here for quite a while. And even when you think about, well, Janelle Hunter's kind of young, isn't he? Well, he's 29 years old, and his contract expires next year. And you're like, damn, this is an old ass roster, and you realize they really needed to win this year. This was weak NFC, a very weak NFC North, and new head coach, a decent year on all of their cap hits. They really should have been a lot more competitive, and that's why I loved the T.J. Hawkinson trade for them when it happened. But they also needed to get a little bit more juice in the running back and receiving core that they just didn't seem to get. So disappointing year from the Vikings, but I think they can bounce back, and I don't think it'll be as expensive as a lot of Vikings fans are going to think. So we'll first go ahead and start on the offense. They were 7th in points and in yards. They tied. They finished the same spot in points scored and the yards. So good year there, and you got to have a top 10 offense to be a Super Bowl contender. So I think you can run it back mostly with the same offense. You're going to have problems where I think a cap casualty this year is going to be cutting Dalvin Cook. He's just got too big of a cap hit. You can save almost $8 million by cutting him. Great franchise player, but you can't justify paying a 20-year-old running back $14 million. So you'll go ahead and cut him, and you're gonna look towards the draft for your running back options instead, and maybe you can re-sign Alexander Madison for a cheaper contract instead. But you'll go ahead and be making some changes there. But really, Dalvin Cook didn't have the juice this year that you were hoping for, anyways. You're okay with that. On the offensive side, you'll also be looking to use your first round pick on a wide receiver. It's going to be a huge thing of importance there for the team to get a guy to fill Adam Thielen's position and to get someone who can be competitive next to Justin Jefferson on that offense. On the defensive side, though, is the most interesting part. Brian Flores was just hired as a defensive coordinator. Absolutely fantastic hire. I know that the Vikings were really hoping that D'Amico Ryans would be their guy, but he obviously got the head coaching position, so they're happy to get Brian Flores, as he was a very competitive defensive coordinator and a guy that they are very happy to have there. So with the Brian Flores defense, you're going to be looking at a lot more cover 1 and a lot less cover 4. So you're not looking for these cornerbacks and safeties to play these deep zones that are just let up everything short and not let anything kill them over the top. Instead, you're going to be doing the exact opposite of, I'm going to match my guys up against your guys. We're going to see who's better, and if you can beat us deep, congrats to you, but it won't be happening every play. And I like that. I think that Brian Flores is a great coach. I think he coaches guys up to the best they can be. And when we look at guys that the Dolphins defense, guys who were really good like Xavier Howard, had their best years with him, and then absolutely had terrible year once he was gone. So with him coming into the team, you're going to need to sign some cheaper guys. Brian Jones is going to be talked about as being a cut casualty for the Dolphins this season, as they can save almost $8 million by cutting him. So I think the Vikings will be able to sign him to a cheaper contract, maybe 2-3 years at $4 to $9 million, somewhere around there. And then they'll be signing Andrew Van Ginkel, who is a linebacker for the Dolphins, who I thought had a fantastic year. He was really good when he was with the Dolphins and under Brian Flores, but then this last year, the defense was taking a different position. They were using him differently, and he just didn't excel that much. So I think you'll bring in a couple guys like that to a Brian Flores-led defense, and I think it'll make a lot of big changes. So that is my plan for the Vikings, and I think that is the best option for them to win now. However, if you are told by your front office, hey, Harrison Smith, Adam Thielen, Kirk Cousins, and Zadarius Smith are all retiring, then I think you go ahead and give it up. I don't think you're going to be able to. And you say, we're going to have a down year. We're going to hope that we can spend a year developing all the young players that we have and then bounce back in 2024.
Solid plan.
Yeah, so that's our Vikings plan, or at least my Vikings plan right now. I'll throw it to you, Josh. Are you going to go with the Packers or the Lions first?
Let's just go ahead and get the Band-Aid off with the Packers. I want to end this one on a better note. Let's get the bad out of the way. Or in this case, I'd rather use the term the ugly. So, Packers, this is going to be an interesting one. So, we got Mike LaFleur as the head coach still. Adam Stenavich is the offensive coordinator. Joe Barry, defensive coordinator. I'm looking at this last year. It was a very average offense. Most stats that you're looking at, they're either barely in the upper half of the teams, ranking somewhere around 13, 14, somewhere in that range, or barely below it, ranking somewhere around the 20s, usually, is with most of their stats. So, very middle of the pack offense, which is not what you would expect considering how they have arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks ever with Aaron Rodgers. We'll get to him later. I know that's the big question mark right now for the Packers. Defensive wise, as far as points allowed in their pass defense, they were very good, and they were also very good in being forcing turnovers. However, they did not get much pressure on the QB, and their rushing defense was abysmal at times. Um, so overall, I'd say it's a pretty good defense, especially in pass-heavy league that we're in now. You saw what they did against the Vikings towards the end of the season. They completely shut down Justin Jefferson. So overall, decent defense, especially on their secondary and everything. However, they need to get some kind of edge rusher, pass rusher, something to get pressure on the QBs because I think they were 28th in sacks, so very bad. Looking at the offseason, how things are looking for them. As it stands right now, they are 25 million under the cap. They have a few notable free agents. You got Adrian Amos, Dean Lowry, Mason Crosby, their kicker, Alan Lazard, Robert Tonyan, and Jaron Reed. So most of them are going to be your defensive players. However, there's a few offensive players on there, and then the kicker. You could probably find someone for cheap. Oh well. Crosby is pretty good though. Lazard didn't produce nearly as much as people were hoping, so maybe cut your ties with him. Tunyon was actually a pretty good tight end, but you can probably try to find one for cheap. And there is a lot of notable free agents that are tight ends as well, amongst other teams. Looking at their draft picks, they have picks 1 through 5 in those rounds, and then they have 3 7th round picks. However, they don't have any 6. And then here's where things get very interesting for the Packers. Question number 1. What do you do with Aaron Rodgers? Now, to me, in a dream situation, they trade him and hopefully the team is willing to take on his full contract that he has. You do that, you're saving somewhere around $30 million for your cap, so that would actually put you $5 million above. If the Packers want to stick with Aaron Rodgers for whatever reason, I did an experiment using the tool that we use to kind of look at these contracts and everything like that. If you're looking at the ones like their highest paid players, these are all the players you would have to cut. And there's one restructure in there just so that way they're barely above the cap space. You'd have to restructure Jair Alexander. Dead cap would actually cost more just to cut him. David Bakhtiari, Kenny Clark, Aaron Jones, Preston Smith, and Rasul Douglas. Cutting those guys and restructuring Jair Alexander barely puts him over the cap. Not even enough to sign all the rookies, though. So what I would do if I were the Packers, 1, trade Aaron Rodgers. At this point, to me, it's not worth it anymore. It's not worth going. Is he still going to play? Is he not? I don't know. Oh, hey, now he's going on a 4-day... I can't remember what he called it now, but basically 4 days by himself. Is he going to play still? I don't know. Just trade him, and he can decide what he can do from there. And if the team that trades for him and he doesn't decide to play, and then he decides to quit, tough loss, you took the chance. But trade him, but only in the case where they pay for at least like half of his contract or whatever. Because if they pay, because right now he's costing about $30 million. If they pay half, that's $15 million. There, you only have $10 million left in cap space that you're under. Which leads me to their second move that I think they should go for. Cut Aaron Jones. Now, that's a scary statement, especially if you're a Packers fan. Aaron Jones has been phenomenal with the Packers when he's healthy. But he's costing them about $10 million right now. So if you can trade Aaron Rodgers and at least get half his contract taken care of by the other team, and then cut Aaron Jones, right there you freed up your entire cap space pretty much. You might be a couple thousand under or over. I don't know the exact math on that, but you're pretty much right at even. And from there you can restructure all your big name players to the point where you actually have... But they definitely need to start getting some more receivers. The receivers they have right now are pretty good, but they're not good enough. You need some more weapons there. Maybe a QB. It just depends what they do with Aaron Rodgers on that one. O-line, they did have some really good players, but their O-line was not the greatest at times. And outside of that, I'd focus on your defense. So those are, to me, like their biggest needs that they need to find throughout the year in this offseason. But biggest thing they need to do, in my opinion, is get rid of Aaron Rodgers through a trade and get the other team to pay at least half of his contract, if not all of it. Because otherwise, they are and cap hell, and I don't think they'd be able to get out of it easily.
That is our Packers roundup, or I guess Whoppers Packers roundup there. Next, we go ahead and have, and if you ask me, this is the most interesting team in the division, and that's the Bears. Head coach Matt Eberflus kind of had the rug pulled out from under him. Same with the offense coordinator Luke Getsy and defense coordinator Alan Williams. They kind of had everything taken away from them this season. They were hoping to be a very competitive roster when they got there, and then the GM Ryan Poles said, "Nah, I'm just gonna trade everyone." And if you ask me, that is the right way to do a tank. You want the number one overall draft pick. Every team does, but you're not willing to be that bad for it. And when you tell your players, like, oh, I want you guys to go out there and lose, they're not going to do that. And it's why guys like Lovie Smith and who was the guy they had last year in the Texans? 2021. Lovie Smith and
Remember?
yeah, they weren't willing to tank for that number one overall pick. They were willing to be bad. Same with the Jets and Adam Gase. Like, it's just they're not willing to be that bad because no one wants to be that bad. But the owners are just like, I don't care if I'm bad for a year. I want to be great in the future. But what are you going to do? You can't really do that much. And so you end up with a team like the Bears who traded away everybody and successfully tanked for the first overall pick, which means they have so many options. And when we get to our draft plans, we're going to be talking about what all the teams should be doing for there. But we're going to be looking right now. We're going to pretend right now that they are going to go ahead and use that first overall pick, and they're going to be taking one of those two awesome defensive linemen in either Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, as they're both fantastic prospects on the defensive line. And when you have two guys like that, you need to go ahead and pair them up with some players who have been in the league for a few years and players who are willing to come in and be a staple. Now, the Bears have so much cap space. They have something like $100 million in cap space, so they can do anything they fucking want to. It's just open to them. So go ahead and sign Nicholas Morrow. He's a linebacker for the team, and anyone else that they think that the coaches think should be an important part of the team, or at least should compete with the rookies that they'll be bringing in with all of their picks. But then the biggest problem with this free agents class is that the best players are all safeties, and Bears are kind of good on safeties already. I thought that their safety play, while he didn't stand out on the statistics boards like everyone, but Jaquan Brisker was a fine safety, if you asked me. And Eddie Jackson was, I think, still an elite safety when he has a chance to be. So I'm not really that interested in guys like Jesse Bates and Jordan Poyer like I am with other teams. I'm more interested in a couple players like the defensive line and the linebackers, because that front seven needs to get a lot bigger, and they need to learn how to stop the run, because they were 31st against the run, whereas they were something like 23rd against the pass. And it's just like, you can't be that bad against just the run when your offense isn't putting up that many points. Now, the guys that are free agents that I'm going to go ahead and try and sign is Tremaine Edmonds, linebacker from the Bills. He's only 24 years old. Get some youth, front load his contracts so that you're not having that cap hit when you're trying to re-sign guys like Justin Fields and Chase Claypool and whoever else you're feeling. Zach Allen, edge rusher for the Cardinals, was a fantastic player this year. He talked. I was watching a lot of J.J. Watt content and trying to see if he was going to retire this year, and obviously he did. And a guy that was working really well with him was Zach Allen on the Cardinals, so I like him as an edge rusher. He's 25 years old. And then I'm going to go ahead and get 27-year-old Eli Apple. I do think he is still a top-rated cornerback in the league, and I think he'll bring some personality that is I'm going to win because I think I'm the best attitude that I think will be very good for a young class of the Bears, who will be bringing in a lot of rookies who are going to need somebody to say, put it on my back, I'm the best. And they're going to be like, thank you. And then the last guy I'm bringing in on the defense is Brandon Graham of the Eagles. it's only going to be maybe a 2 or 3 year contract, with that second or third year really being an optional, we're going to cut you contract and you can retire. Um, He's 34 years old. He'll have just come off of that Super Bowl, and I just want him to come in there and be a rotational piece so he can lead the defense and teach all of my young players like Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Zach Allen, and be a teacher for the team as much as a fantastic defensive lineman, which he is. On the offensive side, we're going to need to get Justin Fields some help. And I watch a lot of YouTube, and one of the guys who is absolutely the best on YouTube for learning about the NFL, learning about all these teams and what they are and how their scheme runs is Brett Coleman. And in Brett Coleman's one of his newest videos, he talks about the Bears rebuild and what they should do. And while I disagreed with some of the individual players on there, a guy that I really liked was Laramie Tunsil from the Texans. And he's saying the Bears need to go out for trade him. And if you're a Texans fan, you're like, there's no way in hell we're trading away Laramie Tunsil. And you realize he's 29 years old, and his cap hit is absolutely massive every single year. And the Texans are going to be needing to sign a lot of different players, and especially all the rookies that they've been actually able to keep around. And so it's going to be up to a team like the Bears to front-load the hell out of Laramie Tunsil's contract and get a great left tackle for the Bears offensive line, because that is bad. After that, I'm trading for T. Higgins, get some youth on the receiving core, and I'm re-signing David Montgomery. And if Dalvin Cook's released, which I said in my Vikings recap that he should be, I'm going to re-sign him there because I think he'll have an attitude that is a fuck the Vikings attitude that'll be really good for the team.
So I like a lot of those moves. I definitely like the Laramie Tunsil. Tackle, you need an anchor for the O-line, and he's been phenomenal over the years. Maybe not top tier, but he's always been right up there at least, so I like those moves.
Yeah, I think on offense it's going to work around him. I think that'll be huge, and I think that's a team that wants to run the ball a lot. And when you want to run the ball, you have to have a good offensive line. So.
Mm-hmm.
That is my Bears recap. We'll go ahead and throw it to Josh for the last one in the division with the Lions.
So we're going to end this with the Lions. This is a little bit of a happier note. These guys are actually doing well. It's not like the Packers where things are getting ready to turn into hell and then some. Lions. Coach, Dan Campbell. Love the man. Love the personality. Probably my favorite coach outside of Andy Reid. Ben Johnson's their offensive coordinator. England's their defense coordinator. This was a top 5 offense and top 10 in like all but rush yards and third and fourth down conversions. This was an elite offense. While there was times it definitely didn't seem like it, when they clicked, they clicked. They could probably rival the Chiefs offense when they did click finally. Defense, very middle of the pack in terms of sacks and turnovers. Otherwise, they're just pretty much a bottom tier team. Rushing and passing defense, they're both towards the bottom. So defense is probably where, for the Lions, you're going to want to focus a lot on your offseason. Most of their offensive players are coming back, so definitely focus more on the defense, kind of like what the Chiefs have been doing for what feels like ever since they drafted Patrick Mahomes, is invest pretty much just in the defense, maybe get a few offensive pieces here and there, but mostly just the defense. So let's start off with what they have in cap space. As it stands right now, they're just under $16 million in cap. That's what they have available at the moment. I don't know what it costs to sign rookies, so I'm just going to use $15 million as a number here, because the thing with their draft picks is they have a lot of picks in the early rounds. They have 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a third, a fifth, and then they have 2 6th-round picks. So in those first 2 rounds, where the players are the most expensive when you draft them, you have 4 picks already. Now, obviously, they can trade them, now make things a little bit cheaper, but if they kept them, just picked with what they had, you're probably going to need a decent amount of money. And then looking at some of the free agents that they're going to have, and these are people they might look at re-signing, some of them anyways. DJ Chark, who's one of the more big names in the receivers. because it's not a great receivers class. I'm not going to lie. Byron Pringle is honestly one of the better options, and he did nothing for the Bears. Um, Jamal Williams, he's up there. And then Mike Hughes, Alex Anzalone, and Evan Brown from the defensive side of things are also notable free agents. Um, so what I would do if I were the Lions, first things first, see if you can restructure Jared Goff's contract. If you can do this, you actually end up freeing roughly $9 million in your caps, so that gives you a little bit more breathing room. Obviously, you can restructure a lot of other contracts, but that's probably your big one that you would want to restructure. After that, I'd focus mostly on getting some veteran linebackers or go after some in the draft. Alex Anzalone, he was a huge part of their defense over the last few years, so losing him would be huge if they can't re-sign him. But if you can replace him with another, say, linebacker like Jermaine Edmonds, that might actually be pretty good. Outside of that, pretty much just go anything defense. Offensively, maybe get another wide receiver, but Jameson Williams is starting to come in, and you have the Sun God still, so you don't really need too much more help on receivers. Running backs, you have I'm just blanking on the guy's first name, but Swift. He's good when healthy, but he's not normally healthy, so you definitely want someone else. If you can, I would re-sign Jamal Williams, but if not, try to get another veteran running back, so that way you have some veteran presence at least. Or maybe go after one in the draft. Maybe in a K-State fan, I actually think Deuce Vaughn would be perfect for this system. As much as I hate to say it, because I want Deuce to go to the Chiefs, but
That is a great point. Yeah.
Deuce Vaughn would do phenomenal in this system. He's kind of like, it's her first name because I can't think of his first name right now to save my life, but Swift.
Yeah, DeAndre Swift. Yeah.
Andre.
He's
basically Swift, but smaller, and I think a little bit more sturdy. I think he won't get injured nearly as easily.
Yeah, when Vaughn gets measured at the combine, I'm going to be very interested in his measurables, especially his 40 time and his weight.
But I think with this offensive line that they have, because Lions have one of the best O-lines. I don't remember where they ranked offensively with sacks, but they were at least top 10. I remember that much. A tiny little guy like Deuce Vaughn, the linebackers won't be able to find him.
That's a good point. It can get high. It can get pretty hidden behind that massive offensive line.
For all of our three listeners, I do recommend watching the one play K-State versus Alabama where Deuce Vaughn scored a touchdown. Literally see that happen. Alabama's defense is full of pro caliber players across top to bottom. Didn't find him until it was too late. Managed to run 88 yards for a touchdown. Why? Because by the time he broke into the secondary, it was just too late because they could simply not find him at all. A very tiny guy. He's very shifty though. Impacts a lot more power. I'm going on a Deuce Vaughn spiel. Sorry about this, but
it's okay. That's the point of the podcast, is to just rant and rave about Deuce Vaughn and Tyler Lockett.
Don't get me started on Tyler Lockett. I'll save that one for next.
I noticed you drafted him like 12 rounds before his ADP in the dynasty draft.
I know you and I know Billy, and you guys would pick him up just for bait for me. So
Absolutely, but it was
not taking chances.
That was very early.
And he still produces like a top 12 wide receiver all the time. So, screw you guys. I still get a good receiver.
Fifth round. You drafted him in the 5th round.
Yep, I debated wait until the 6th. I was like, I'm not taking chances with Cam.
Ahead of Drake London, Nick Chubb, Christian Watson, Jameson Williams, like DK Metcalf, his 6 years younger teammate, who had like the same numbers. You're like, give me Lockett.
Yeah, I say he's my guy. I gotta have him.
I was a little sad. I wanted him.
No, you did. Why do you think I picked him up there? But I actually do think getting some kind of running back for the Lions, whether it's re-signing Jamal Williams or go for a draft or free agency because there is some pretty good running backs in free agency. It's definitely what they should do. And I think Deuce Vaughn would be perfect, and then you can do whatever you want to do with DeAndre Swift in the next. This was his third year, right?
Sorry, you cut out there. I couldn't hear you. What'd you say?
This DeAndre Swift, was this his second or third season?
Swift? I would say it's third.
Either way, you can do whatever the hell you want with him. Deuce Vaughn would actually do well here. However, he'd probably have to deal with the curse of Barry Sanders, which I don't want that to happen to do. So
That is very accurate.
perfect fit. Outside of that, don't take him. I want Deuce to do good. I want Deuce to be loose. But it's off-season plan, restructure Goff, to get some defensive players, try to get a few veterans if you can, especially at the linebacker position. And either re-sign Jamal Williams to like maybe a 1 year or 2 year deal, or go after a running back in the draft.
I like it. When we get to the Cardinals, we'll be talking about how they still haven't hired a head coach and they're really struggling on finding anybody who's willing to go there. I'll be talking about how Ben Johnson's already said how he's going to stay with the Lions for another year, but if I think the Cardinals should go ahead and hire somebody who's just a Lovie Smith kind of guy who's just who's just going to be bad for a year and it's just going to be bad. That's really about it. Someone who isn't that inspiring, and then next year look at the options because a lot of teams have had a lot of head coach turnover recently. So I think next year you'll be looking at a lot of head coach opportunities that you might be the number one option. I mean, Kyler Murray is still a franchise quarterback, at least I believe so, and I think Ben Johnson was just fantastic with the Lions offense. So I think that Ben Johnson could be a head coaching candidate next year, and kind of fits that mold of a young, offensive-minded head coach that a lot of teams are really interested in. So. Mm-hmm. It's gonna depend a lot though on how good the offense is. If they can be as good as they've been underneath Dan Campbell these last few years, then I'd say it's worth the opportunity. But if they take a step back, that is very bad because that defense is rough.
Defense definitely needs some love and then some. Put it lightly.
Yeah. Well, I think that does it for this week's episode. Josh, you have anything else to add before we close out?
Go Chiefs. Let's shoot down some Eagles.
Let's go Chiefs. This episode's going to be a lot sadder next week if we end up losing that Super Bowl, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a good game. You have any final predictions for that game?
31-28 Chiefs. Not quite last second, but pretty close to it. Harrison Butker will win it.
See, I'm thinking 27-24 Chiefs. I think there's going to be a difference in the coaching, and I don't think the Eagles' defense and the Eagles' offense are as good as a lot of people think because they haven't really played that many good teams this year. But it's going to depend a lot on the Chiefs' offense, how healthy we are, because if we're not healthy, this game is over.
Again, we moved the ball on Cincinnati's pretty good defense with the MVS, and who else were we starting receiver towards the end?
That's exactly what I'm trying to tell people. It's just like the Bengals defense is an awesome defense. Like they're so good, and they shut down the Bills completely, who are another top offense in the league. And it's just like there's no respect for the fact that the Chiefs were able to put up enough points to beat them. And this is the best Chiefs defense I think we've seen in the last 4 years. So I think there's a very good chance that Chiefs end up winning this game. But I do think it could be close. I don't think there'll be a blowout. But we'll be back next week to talk about another NFC division. Josh, let's decide that right now. You want to go west? You want to go south? You want to go east?
Do we just want to rip the Band-Aid and get the South done with because it's ugly or didn't ugly, or do we want to actually talk about something
Let's jump to the South. I'm down. Let's go ahead and jump over there.
Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's get it done with.
You got to give me the Panthers, and let me have the Falcons too. You okay with the Bucks? No, that's too mean. I can't leave you both of them.
Right. At least give me the. At least give me the Falcons.
Fine,
Give me
you
something
you can have the Falcons. I'm taking the Bucks then.
Damn it.
You
I'll
can
take
have. You had to have the
Take the
Packers.
Saints.
Now you have to have the Saints, the two worst salary caps in the league.
Let's see who I can cut next week in my hypotheticals experiments. Let's go.
Sounds good. All right. Well, we'll be back next week to talk about the NFC South division. Then stick around for that recap when we get there. In the meantime, follow us on Twitter at FalseStartFPod. You can see it on YouTube, and you can look at all of our terrible memes and fantasy football takes over on there. And feel free to. I'll be sending out some polls next week on who people think had the better draft in our dynasty league and getting some fan feedback. But thank you from the False Start Fantasy Squad. Be on the lookout for our next episode so you can be ready before the ball is snapped. Thank you and goodbye.